The three types of flow, like in the Sutta Nipata Parayana Vagga, Ajita asked the Buddha, there are many types of streams. Where does the stream stop? Well, there are different types of streams. One is the stream of, we call it the river of craving. Nati Nadi Samutanha. There's no river like craving. Nati Dukkha Samakanda. There is no suffering like the aggregates. Craving, which also comes with the asavas, the flows, effluence, flows from the highest realm of the Arupa Brahmas to the hell regions. The asavas, or the intoxicants, or they flow from the highest realm to the lowest infernal regions. It's like there's no end to craving. The other thing is the stream that leads to Nibbana. That is the Noble Eightfold Path. What is the third flow? Pino? Nature, mind and body processes. It rises, passes away, and it keeps going on. The wheel of conditioning. It stops only when the cycle is broken. So this go with the flow. It's the flow of the mindfulness in the Noble Eightfold, right mindfulness in the Noble Eightfold Path. And it flows with the processes. When I distributed this book, someone said, this is your Bhante, this is your creation. No, this is not my creation. I only put it on paper. The whole thing started when I was in Burma and observing what the advice the Sayadaws gave to us. When you first start to learn, yours is not to reason and ask why. You're just supposed to follow. You, what we call putujanas, your ordinary worldlings. When you practice for some time, after some time, then they tell you. So, to make a long story short, they obviously have a reason why they ask you to do this and why they ask you not to do that. So I wrote in my first little book, the first step. It's one small chapter on priority of objects. This is said in reference to the method of Satipatthana Vipassana that we practice. And so to make things simple for people to understand why we watch this object and not that object, I put it into these flow charts. There's a general direction whereby if you practice according to instructions, where the mind, how the mind progresses and what objects that arise. For example, if you travel, you're all going to Rome. Or do you want to go to Jerusalem or Roma? Che preferisci? Roma, of course. All roads lead to Rome. So sometimes you may start from Piacenza, sometimes you may start from Singapore, sometimes you may start from California, but we are all going to Rome. So we all move to a certain point. And so when you get nearer and nearer to the point, and especially when you're around Rome, so when we're practicing the same way, on the same direction to Nibbana, we will meet with certain types of object, particular to that level. Then because of that specific type of terrain, we would have to travel in a certain way. And so the flow charts actually illustrates how the mind progresses and what objects it would meet in a natural way, because it makes special reference to the objects that we are observing in the Satipatthana. So it's not my creation, I only put it on the map. Just like when traveling from Piacenza to Rome, tell you the road to go there. Of course, you could take the scenic route, or you could take the direct road. Which one would you like to go? Direct. Più diretto? See? Luca. Pure Vipassana. The scenic road you can take samatha first. So when you're coming down from Piacenza, you take a different direction, going up the Apennines. Travel all around the Apennines, see all the nice, and you come down. As we said, our meditation is based on the Satipatthana foundation. It means the mindfulness foundation of the body, feelings, consciousness, and phenomena. Emphasis here is the mindfulness. The body and so forth are the objects. Now for some basics. This first one or two talks are more for beginners. Can you hear me? Yes. Now mindfulness, what is mindfulness? Mindfulness is something that to know clearly you have to experience it. It is a state of mind. There's the consciousness and there are the mental states. When you talk of the consciousness, it means the mind in general. So if the consciousness of the mind is water, the mental states are like the states of water. So with the consciousness, there are different mental states. For example, if the water is very rough, we say that state is restlessness. And the water is the restless consciousness. If the water is very calm, and very little waves, and it's calm, the calmness is a mental state. And the water is the calm consciousness. So similarly, mindfulness is a mental state. This mental state has the nature of being very clear, peaceful, and soft. This is the very simple first level of mindfulness. But it is a very important point because it decides the wholesome and unwholesome consciousness. Someone recently asked me, don't you have to learn a lot to know what is wholesome and unwholesome? You don't have to know too much. If you have mindfulness, then it's wholesome. You have greed, anger, delusion, it's unwholesome. Like my Thai teacher once said, to start vipassana, you need to know only two things. What is nama rupa? What is mind and matter? But I would say that before that, one has to distinguish between mindfulness and no mindfulness. Ordinary mindfulness and vipassana mindfulness. And then you go to nama rupa. And this comes with experience. For example, you're meditating and you ask the person, are you mindful? If you're not sure, then you are in the danger zone. Make sure you're mindful. Then after you ask, how mindful are you? Usually not enough. I remember a joke my teacher used to say, the Thai Abhidhamma teacher tells us, if somebody asks you, is it nibbana, is it mind or matter? You would say, mental, nama. And when they ask again, really? Then you say, no. So it depends on the degree of mindfulness. Because in terms of experience, no. Cannot be any doubt about it. Because until recently, somebody has been asking me, because there are two points of view. One says nibbana is the free mind. One is the nibbana is extinction. So how could this question arise? Because of delusion, because of they're thinking too much. It's just like the Zen question. You have a bottle half filled with water. Is it half empty or half full? So what do? Take the water and drink it. Now we come back to this. So once you know what mindfulness is, after trying very hard, in the beginning you start drawing and you're sleepy, you're thinking, you're sleepy, you're thinking, and then you're not mindful. So you keep trying to bring the mindfulness to the object. The mistake is you're just trying to concentrate on the object, not trying to be mindful. The first step is arousing mindfulness. After some time, we have more mindfulness, and the 5 hindrances like sleepiness and restlessness and craving and anger, they are not there anymore. You find the mind very peaceful and very clear. When the mindfulness becomes more continuous, there arises what you call concentration. We call right concentration because it has mindfulness. It's not wrong concentration. And when you're able to eventually follow the object and observe deeply into it, then you would understand what is nama rupa, mind and matter. To understand this clearly constitutes the first insight knowledge. Before arrival of the first insight, a lot of things has to be done. It's where the satipatthana practices come in. So at that time, you are practicing vipassana bhavana. It is the cultivation of insight, even though insight has not arisen yet. And so when you're practicing and the first insight knowledge arises, then you are practicing vipassana. Bhavana with vipassana. Now vipassana bhavana comes with this type of mindfulness and the type of objects. At the beginning, you use the ordinary mindfulness. The main difference in the beginning is the nature of the objects. The vipassana objects changes. It's a process. And because of that, it manifests the three universal characteristics: impermanence, suffering, non-self. While observing these objects with these three characteristics, one cannot help but notice that the mindfulness and the consciousness possesses the same nature. Okay, is to give you a general idea. So the first object we use is the body object. It is obvious because the body is gross and easy to follow. So you're given some very basic and easy objects. You look at the Kayanupassana, Satipatthana, the body foundation mindfulness. There are a number of objects that have been given. First is the breath, then is the postures, then is the clear comprehension, which is actually all the different postures. Then there are the parts of the body, then there are the contemplation of the four elements, then there are the different stages of decay of the corpse. So when you zero in, which is the main one? The postura. Corpo, che cosa corpo? La postura. What's the body? The posture. You're doing body foundation of mindfulness. What's the body? So wherever you go, the corpo is there. Is there anywhere you go that the body is not there? No, the body is there. And when you look at the body, put it well enough, what do you watch? Four elements. Whether you watch it in and out or whatever, finally you come to the base four elements. Sono solo quattro elementi. Qual è il principale? Which is the main one of the four elements? Water, fire, wind. Terra. Bravo. Perché? Because it's the base for all the other three elements. But what is the experience of the earth element? Never. Hardness. Partly correct. Softness is the other side of the story. That's also another part of the story. What is it that gives rise, what experience is it that gives rise to the experience of hardness and softness? Take this somewhere else. Take this psychic. Material existence. Substance. What is there? That thing. And what is that thing? This earth element. Suppose you touch this thing, you don't care what you touch. You know you touch something. That thing is the element, material substance, the base for all materiality. Once you get that, you get all the elements, all materialities, because you already caught the couple by the head. You have caught the couple by the head, you ask the couple to do what, he will listen to you. So it's very simple. And what is basic materiality? Basic materiality is existence, is that nature that exists freed from concepts, but is impermanent. And it's impermanent because there are two things, two types of existence that does not know an object. Rupa and Nibbana. The difference is Rupa is impermanent. Is Nibbana permanent? In a certain way, yes. In its experience, it cannot be described. One word is one too much. So you usually arrive it by way of elimination. So we come back to the Rupa. That means when you really see experience the earth element, that means you experience with mindfulness, you experience with vipassana mindfulness, and you see experience the earth element with knowing it's as a natural phenomena, natural reality, using the Pali word anatta, no self. See, it's important because you see even in the Mula Pariyaya Sutta, also one of the Majjhima Nikaya first discourse, it says, it gives you the idea of how the defilements and samsara is created, in the whole of samsara. It says that first he knows earth as earth. See, he chooses the earth elements. This is the most basic. And after he says, then he perceives the earth as mine, expresses the earth is outside me, and so on. And all the identification processes come in. Here, of course, the commentary clarifies. Here he perceives earth as earth, not in a vipassana way, but with the deluded perception. And so in the other side of the story, he perceives earth as earth with mindfulness of things as they really are. You see, this is a very initial response or mental action towards the object. For example, if you study the thought processes, the first object that impresses on you will be the Paramattha Dhamma, the ultimate reality, such as the earth element. After that comes the idea, this is hard or soft. Then comes the idea, is the floor is hard, my finger is soft. Of course, you cannot immediately get to this point. You have to slowly move from my hand to just hand, and from hand to just touching, and from there you feel hard or soft. Then when you're mindful, more and more mindful, then you experience the earth element as non-self. So that's why for beginner we feel the basic objects. No, there's a walking meditation, other footsteps, and then there's the sitting meditation, there's the sitting posture and the rising and falling. And outside that, there are all the other daily activities. So first you have to make sure you're mindful. Second, you follow your object. And third, you observe your object. And third, observe the object. Very simple. In practice, not so simple. Because firstly, it's not so easy to follow the object. Because the object changes. As I say, it's a process, it flows. And you have to be flexible. Secondly, the object is not always there. And if it is there, sometimes it's very weak. And some other thing, object, takes over dominance. So, but things are not so bad. You remember the basic principle of continuity of mindfulness over fixation. If you are really able to concentrate on that object and nothing but the object, so help you God, then within 1 minute you go into deep concentration. So usually the mind will run a bit and come back, run a bit and come back. So you know it happens, so you try to make sure the mindfulness is there to follow, to see what happens. When you can do that, then you're more in control. And so there are primary objects and there are secondary objects. Primary object is the object which you use most of the time to build up your mindfulness. This is usually something clear and easily accessible. For example, rising and falling is not so difficult to feel. Is it difficult? If your stomach is too small, it can be quite difficult. Or it's too big, you cannot expand anymore. But you see, the main thing is still the posture. The rising and passing away, rising and falling, the in and out breath may be there and it may not be there. But the body will always be there. If your body is not there, so you can still fall back on the bodily sensations. So there will be always something for you to watch to maintain the continuity of mindfulness. But if you can follow the rising and falling, which is a more narrow object, then the concentration builds up faster. So secondary objects are objects that intrude into your normal observation of the primary object. The first reason is because of dominance. It's stronger than the primary object. For example, pain will become strong, nothing matters. So you watch pain, you learn to watch pain. The principle is still the same. You have to be mindful and you have to follow what is happening to the object. And you observe deeper and deeper into the nature of object. Another thing is because of the importance, because it's becoming critical, that is defilements or hindrances. When the hindrances arise, that means your mindfulness is being threatened. So before your mindfulness is murdered, so you have to revive it, give CPR. So where, for example, when thinking, I must quickly not thinking, they pass away. Thinking comes and thinking goes, it's okay. But if thinking sticks to you like a mosquito that does not let go of you, then you have to do something more. Or sleepiness, when heavy sleepiness comes, then you sleep. Then there's no meditation, you're sleeping. So before you fall asleep, you have to take care of it. Sleepiness coming, And then you watch it clearly, it disappears. But what is more critical is the craving and the anger, because they are active, very active forces. And if you don't check it, it can become overwhelming. Delusion too, but delusion is more tricky, and if it becomes strong, then very difficult. This type occurs more in psychological cases. So otherwise, these secondary objects, which includes sound, they come and they go. So if you follow your primary object long enough, the concentration would improve, and if you observe it deep enough, the vipassana object would become apparent. That's what difference between vipassana concentration and samatha concentration. Because the concentration from vipassana comes from the vipassana observation of the ultimate realities and processes, whereas that from samatha comes from fixation of the mindfulness onto the concept. So you see here, sitting meditation. Here we take rising, falling as a primary object. Rising, falling, two processes. Then the secondary objects that come in, you see, are the hearing, thinking, sitting, touching, pain, sleepiness. Now what happens is sometimes the rising, falling becomes absent or too subtle. So you go back to the sitting, touching. So when you're having sitting, touching as the basic primary object, the rest becomes the secondary object. When rising, falling comes back, then you go back to the rising, falling as the primary object. And finally, when pain arises, pain becomes the primary object. When the concentration becomes more developed and the objects become more subtle, then consciousness can take over as the primary object. And so, point is, primary object changes, but not any object. You don't take any object as a primary object. Only the more suitable ones for the development of mindfulness and insight. The main thing is the continuity of the mindfulness, continuity of and the continuous deepening of the vipassana mindfulness. And it's the walking meditation. You can see it in the flow chart here. We'll stop here tonight. Any questions?